It's beautiful. I'll call it Sword Soul. Hello, I'm Dr. Alex Simo with 7 O's, no relation. Are you Joseph? I have bad news about your deck. It's boring. But it's a combo deck. It's got plays! It has one line, and you do it every turn. Well, if this deck is boring, then it's no deck of mine. I assure you, sir, we checked your DNA, and it is a 100% match. In fact, we don't think a second person was involved with its creation at all. You seem to have reproduced completely asexually. Which leads me to another question. Why was someone yelling push all morning from our ICU? I had a big lunch. I see. Well, regardless, your deck is boring. Well, maybe it's boring now, but it'll come out to me in its own time. Come out? As a combo deck. Sure.
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. This episode has been a real albatross around my neck. The deck's strong, it's straightforward, it's easy to play, but it's also boring. Mind-numbingly boring. Every time I open OBS, I fall into an unwakeable sleep and lose another 2 hours of my life. All it takes is a single mention of Ecclesia effect. So here's the list, and I knew that Crossout Designator would be here eventually, but seeing it in a deck for the first time, it hurts. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is the pack opening website everyone seems to be using for their progression series, but you might have missed it's also got a deck builder, card database, and a wealth of strategy articles. I personally use it to post the Chalice Line monthly deck breakdowns. So with that, let's slide into Sword Soul. Sword Soul, named after a series of legendary Chinese swords, is an archetype of synchro monsters and enablers with a simple gimmick. By performing a unique action for every main deck monster in the archetype, you can summon a 4-star tuner token to your side of the field, but you can't summon anything but synchros until it leaves. One of the monsters special summons itself, so by using the 6-star and the 4-star material monsters, you can end on a 10-star synchro and an 8-star synchro every turn. The spell traps are some of the most uninspired, boring things I've ever read. One's a Rhoda, one's a Reborn, one's an Icarus attack, and also have a secondary effect. The trap summons a token if it's banished, and the spells modulate levels if they're banished, which unlocks 7, 9, and 11-star synchro plays as well. This is usually where I explain some more about the deck. Maybe give you some of the historical background about the archetype, some alternative ways of building it. Maybe I make a pun about one of their names, but there's not really anything else to say. The archetype was clearly designed with a playstyle in mind. The cards are very powerful and streamlined to that end, and they lock you so specifically out of anything else that your options are pretty limited. Even the pun would be low effort. One of their names is Long Wan. I guess the coolest piece of tech worth talking about is Destroy Phoenix, which has enough incidental synergy with the new Ecclesia that it's worth playing over Dragoon. Let's do the card by card, I suppose. Let's begin with the Sword Soul main deck monsters. Like I mentioned earlier, each main deck monster has a condition that you need to fulfill to get the token to your side of the field, but they also all have a second effect that triggers if it's sent to the graveyard as material for a synchro summoned monster. Yes, they allow you to chain block any monster you summon. Very cool. First up is Long Wan, the Sword Soul Tactician. You can summon this card and a token by discarding a Sword Soul card or a worm monster from your hand. If it's sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you get to inflict 1200 damage to your opponent. That's right, this archetype has a built-in mechanism that makes you win in time. Moye, the Sword Soul Swordmaster, if normally special summoned, allows you to reveal a Sword Soul card or a worm monster in your hand to get the token, and if it's sent to the graveyard as material, you can draw a card. And Tai-Ah, the least powerful Sword Soul Swordmaster, allows you to banish a Sword Soul card or a worm monster from your graveyard to get your token, and if sent to the graveyard, can send a Sword Soul spell, trap, or monster, or a worm from your deck to the grave as well. This is much more powerful in 10e builds of the deck, which I find generally less consistent and less powerful. After that, we've got 3 copies of Ecclesia the Virtuous in white. This card's unreal. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you contribute it during the main phase as a quick effect in order to summon a Sword Soul monster or a Fallen of a Boss from your hand or deck. During the end end phase, if a fusion monster on your side of the field was sent to the graveyard, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand, and I wonder how that might happen. We've got 3 copies of Ash Blossom, 3 copies of Effect Veiler, and Token Collector. You may be thinking, Joseph, this card shuts down your deck. Why are you playing it? Well, Crossout Designator means that those silver bullets that shut down your strategy now do so a lot less frequently. More importantly, in the mirror, you can go into Shooting Riser Dragon using level manipulation effects and send this to the graveyard, preventing your opponent's field from taking off. Finally, we've got Destiny Hero Celestial and Dasher as our garnets for Fusion Destiny. Dasher seems like a weird pick, but since you need another Destiny Hero in graveyard for Celestial, and you definitely don't want to be banishing Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, you pick Dasher because it's the only one of the Destiny Heroes with a graveyard effect that doesn't require you to banish it. We've then got 3 copies of Fusion Destiny. This allows you to fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or deck as fusion material, including a Destiny Hero monster that it lists as material. It's destroyed during the end phase of the next turn, but honestly, who cares? And for the rest of the turn after the card resolves, you can't special summon monsters except Dark Heroes. So just do your plays and do this at the end. After that is the SWORDSOUL Dragon Sword Appears. This card is the Rhoda for the archetype. The Grand Spiritual SWORDSOUL Peak, this is the Reborn. Pot of Prosperity, this card's fantastic in this list because it so needs to find Fusion Destiny and has no way to search it outside of making Verte Anaconda. We've got Called by the Grave, triple Crossout Designator, triple Infinite Impermanence, double SWORDSOUL Sudden Shift, which is, of course, just your Icarus attack that can be banished for extension, and 1 Imperial Order. In the extra, we've got Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, just so absolutely powerful with this strategy. Ruddy Rose Dragon, terrible name, but a great effect. The Grand Duke, Baroness de Fleur, and let me just give you a piece of advice right now. Until this card comes out, don't bother playing this archetype. I'm pretty sure that the order of release puts Baroness out a lot earlier than the rest of the SWORDSOUL cards, but you absolutely need it if you want this deck to take off. We also have a Shen Shen in here because you can occasionally access 9s. Dragite and Omega, 2 copies of Qi Zhao. This card is unbelievably strong. It's a Searcher and Negation. Baxia, which is multiple pops. Shooting Riser Dragon, which can send the aforementioned Token Collector. Baguska and Zeus, and Verte Anaconda and Phoenix. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Pendulum Magician. This is a deck that I'm really excited for in the upcoming format, if only because it seems to have moved on from the 57 negate setups to actually playing Pendulum Graph Control. Unfortunately, our hand is killer. We're going to begin with a copy of New Ecclesia, whose effect we will activate for a Moye. We'll activate the effect of the Moye, revealing the SWORDSOUL in our hand for the token, and then go into a copy of Qi Zhao. We'll activate Qi Zhao's effect as Chainlink 1, and Moye's as Chainlink 2, getting another Ash Blossom to hand alongside a SWORDSOUL card, which we can then pitch for Long Wan. We'll then go into a copy of Baroness de Fleur, trigger the effect of the Long Wan, put our opponent slightly closer to dead, and then fire off a Fusion Destiny. We'll pass back to our opponent with a ton of interaction. Our opponent's going to begin with a copy of Pendulum Call, and boy, this would be bad if we didn't have the Ash Blossom. We'll go ahead and negate that. They'll go for the Dark Worm afterwards, and then trigger the effect of the Dark Worm in order to get a Gate 0. They'll activate Gate 0, and then fire off this copy of Duelist Alliance. The Duelist Alliance will get them, oh wow, Double Iris Magician back to 3. Unfortunately, not very exciting as material for Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion. We'll activate the effect of DPE, and then the effect of Ecclesia at end step. We'll draw, go to standby, bring back the DPE, and no need to prolong this. Let's just go to battle and kill our opponent. Our second match is up against Zodiac Tri-Brigade, and hey, buddy, didn't you know this card is banned? It's format warping. Or so I've been told. We're going first, and our hand is pretty much exactly the same. We'll go for Ecclesia, we'll activate the effect to go into a copy of Moye, we'll trigger the effect of the Moye, revealing a card in hand. Oh my god, our opponent's interacting with us! Well, no matter, Crossout Designator should put a quick end to that. We'll go ahead and negate the Infinite Impermanence and get a token to our side of the field before firing off our Rhoda, and then activating the effect of Long Wan in hand. I think I'm trying to play around a Biru here, but forgot that I already summoned Ecclesia. Ah well, doesn't matter. We can play bad and not get punished anyway, because we get to activate not only the effect of Moye, but also the effect of Qi Zhao. The Token Collector is kind of frustrating. We'll set the Sudden Shift and pass it back to our opponent. Our opponent's going to begin with a copy of Tanky. That's fine. They'll go ahead and add a Fractar to hand, then they'll activate Fractar's effect, sending a copy of Kit, and then activating Kit to send a copy of Nerval. They'll activate Nerval's effect to get a copy of Karos, then they'll activate the Karos, summoning it to their side of the field, and firing it off for 4. I will go ahead and Qi Zhao here, negating the effect, and then they will activate Zodiac Barrage. As they go for the effect, I will activate Sudden Shift, sending the spent Qi Zhao in order to blow up our opponent's board. Now, they do have a Thoroughblade into a Borbo, which is just about as good as it gets, but doesn't actually resolve the problem of the Baroness de Fleur. They can Zeus, we can Fleur, they can Zeus, which will wipe the Fleur, but also destroy the Zeus in the process. And because we have the Tai in hand, we are massively favored. We'll go for that now, normal summoning it, and then activating the effect, banishing the Sudden Shift. We're doing that because then we can get an extra token to our side of the field, and as we go into Qi Zhao, we can add from our deck to our hand the last copy of the trap to set up for an Icarus attack on our opponent's turn. We'll go in for 28, set 2 and pass back to our opponent, but it should be more than enough because all they've got is a Fractal and a Dream. They'll go for the Fractal here, we will Called by the Grave, banishing it, and they will concede. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's on Virtual World, and oh god, they're going first. They're going to begin with a copy of Kaloon. They will activate Kaloon in order to get a Chuche to their side of the field, which they will then target with their ZC, sending a copy of Qinglong, which they will then activate in order to get a Lulu to hand. From here, they'll activate Lulu's effect, add a Lili to hand, and then Lili's effect in order to send a copy of Yan Yan to the graveyard. From here, they can go ahead and Synchro Summon for a Coral Dragon, and then make a copy of Ultimaya Zolkin, drawing a card off the Coral and setting it to proc the effect. Now, unfortunately for our opponent, they don't have another Synchro monster, so we are able to infinite impermanence that copy of Ultimaya Zolkin, but they can normal summon the ZC to bring back the Yan Yan, modulate it up to 6 with Chuche Engrave, and end on Shen Shen Chuche Pass. Still a pretty formidable setup. Our hand is really good. We're going to begin with a copy of Prosperity, and we're looking for exactly Fusion Destiny here. And there it is, right on cue. We'll go ahead and take that bad boy. Afterwards, we're going to normal summon a copy of Mo Ye. We'll activate the effect, revealing a card in hand for a token. We're going to go into a Baxia here because we really want to deal with that Chuche as early as possible. We're going to target it. They will chain it so that we lose our Baxia. No big deal. From here, we can go ahead and special summon a copy of Long Wan. We'll do so and get a token to our side of the field before making a Baroness. We'll Baroness the back row, and thankfully it was a bluff, so we can go into the Fusion Destiny and get attacking. We'll proceed to battle and walk over the board, passing it back to our opponent with a Celestial setup. They draw for turn a copy of Ghost Bell. They're going to Qinglong first. We will chain DPE. Unfortunately, we have to do this. We'll activate DPE's effect. They will Ghost Bell. And now they go for the Shen Shen, activating the Lulu in hand, which we can negate with the Baroness. And unfortunately for our opponent, their Shen Shen can't out the Baroness. We draw for turn. We'll activate the effect of the Baroness to pop the Shen Shen, and from here we can just pop off. We'll activate the effect of Tai A in order to get a token to our side of the field. Make an 8. It's going to be Qi Yao. We'll use Qi Yao's effect and Tai A's effect so we can add another material to our hand to discard for the Long Wan. We'll go for the Long Wan here, get a token to our side of the field, and our opponent is going to scoop upon seeing the Grand Duke. So it's time for game 2, and the double Chuche hand. Well, this Kaloon is going to have to get a Zhuanwu, which they will then target with their copy of ZC to send a copy of Qinglong to the graveyard and get a copy of Lulu to hand. They'll go for the Lulu, pitching a copy of Chuche in the process, and then activating Lili, just like last time, to go ahead and send a Yan Yan to grave. I'm expecting just like... What the hell is that? Final Sigma. Oh, God. Okay, now we're not going to be able to target the Zolkin because their board contains another Synchro monster, so they are going to be able to get the Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. They'll go for Chuche to level modulate once again, and then make themselves a copy of Shen Shen. Okay, Shen Shen, Chuche, Crystal Wing, Geomath, Mech Final Sigma. This is a little more difficult. We'll begin with an Infinite Impermanence, and then we'll fire off this copy of Prosperity. We're looking for pretty much anything we can pitch to Long Wan here, and yeah, these Rhodas are perfect. We will pitch this Rhoda for the Long Wan, and then we will go into Baroness to Fleur. I want to target that set card, which I'm about 100% sure is a Chuche. It is. We can negate the activation with Baroness de Fleur, but now she's just a beat stick that's going to crash with these Final Sigma. We'll go for the Tai A afterwards, and since we have a card in graveyard, we can go into a token and a Qi Yao. We'll activate Qi Yao's effect for the Icarus attack, and then activate Fusion Destiny for a DPE. From here, we can go to the battle phase and walk into the Sigma. Next, we can walk into the Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, whose effects are negated, and use the DPE to clear both remaining monsters from our opponent's side of the field. We will activate DPE, set 2, and pass back to our opponent. In standby, our DPE is going to come back just one turn too late on this copy of Ghost Bell. They'll go for Lao Lao here, and blink and you'll miss it. I should have Icarus attacked here to prevent the Fan Fan from coming out, but I got just a little bit too greedy. We'll go for the Phoenix Enforcer here, targeting the only card that we can, the Zhuanwu, because I know if they pitch that card in their hand, I am feeling pretty good. They'll bring back the Shen Shen, and you have forced my hand. I'm going to have to sudden shift here, and I can't only target one, which means they are going to be able to float from Fan Fan into ZC and Lili and Yan Yan as well. This is a fair amount of damage, but thankfully it is not a Zoo, which is what I was really scared of. In main phase 2, they're going to go into a copy of Stardust Charge Warrior and draw a card off the top of their deck. It's a Lulu! You've got to be kidding me. They're going to afterwards go into a Vermilion Dragon Mech and eat my last card. Nothing short of a miracle is going to win this one for me. Oh, that's kind of a miracle. Okay, we'll special summon the Ecclesia. We'll go for the Celestial afterwards to draw a couple of cards and then activate Ecclesia to get a copy of Mo Ye. Well, Mo Ye revealing the card that we drew off of the Celestial to get a token to our side of the field and a copy of Qi Yao. We'll trigger the effect of the Mo Ye, drawing a third card before adding a fourth to our hand, and then we can Long Wan, pitching the card that we drew off the Celestial for another token. Our opponent's grave is set up, so we might as well banish all of them everywhere with Ruddy Rose Dragon, and then proceed to combat, I suppose. We'll get a token for our sudden shift as well, just in case, and dare our opponent to draw anything. Off the top of their deck, they find the greatest remaining card in the deck, which unfortunately does not beat the Ash Blossom I have in my hand. Whoa. So we're back with the deck, and oh man, those games were good. Oh. The deck's great. I don't know what else to say. It's really good. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, it's consistent. Every single one of its monsters accomplishes the same end goal, and on the off chance you haven't drawn into some of the more important ones, you get draws over the course of your combo. 2, while it's very easy to side against, Token Collector absolutely ruins this deck's day. The newly released Crossout Designator makes that silver bullet a little more bronze. And 3, Phoenix Enforcer is a house. I'm still unconvinced that this card is better than Dragoon, but it's certainly a lot closer than I had first imagined. And the cons. 1, it's one note. It's only really got the one relevant line, and after your opponent knows what you're doing, it's pretty interruptible. 2, it's got a low ceiling. Unless you've drawn Fusion Destiny, you're basically just playing 2 Synchro Turbo. Now that's usually going to be enough, but you're not exactly Dragon Link over here. And 3, it gets old. Quick. I played 4 games and I'm sick of it. All in all, I hope you're excited for this new flavor of Normal Summon Alistair. As always, thanks to my patrons Dominic Ernst, Hakuo, AJBYGO, Alex Perea, Andrew Eller, BB Poison, Blue Fanfiction Inc., Brandon Field, Brandon Keys, Colin Miller, Crispy, Dan the Man Hoban, Dubs Rewatcher, Dying Eyes, Frosty, Ikaliba Brot, Jack Sack PhD, King Magic Ruler, Night Mary, Kylie Denton, Major Rusty, Mike Carlotti, Not Witty, Robot, Rocky Hernandez, Rose Lapine, Sarah Rutledge, Seeker, Space Condor, Space Dandy 1993, Test Subject 213, Adam Trevino, Adrian Bra, Adventure Spence, Afro Ninja 123, Alex Dominguez, Alfred Hendricks, Amaranta V, Andrew Benson, Andrew Ferruia, Andrew Horseman, Apex TCG, Ballin Stalin, Basement Doka, Benjamin Cole Kierman, Billy Williams, Blackacre, Blake Root, Blair, Brendan Peterson, Breaker the Outrage, Brody Colson, Captain Breadbeard, Cash Money Yuki, Chad Bortz, Chad Weatherington, Chase Smith, Chorps Away, CG Alex, Cole Schulian, Colin Gustafson, Control for the Win, Crystal Red Fox, Daffy Deathclock, Dan Schwer, Danny Guadalupe, Darcy Tevz, Dive Missile, Dogma, Dr. Batman, Distrin, LP Got Band, Sag, Emily V, Emperor Stove, Ernesto Ibarra, Fisker Whiskers, FUTR, Game of Wolf, Gavin K, Griever, Hank Cheesecake, Helios the Helios, Haroof, How to Lose, Josemina, Hunter Smith, I Have Nothing But Contempt for This Court, Incredibly Slow, Isaac Jackson, Jay Linya, Jason Leonard, Jay Gordon, Jeff Leonard, Jesse Cox, Jonathan Wallace, Jupe, Jose Luis Cortez, Joy Orjon, Julia Chulian, Callie, Kiffin Hirschgerway, Corey Hess, Gurakaze, Lake Bayer, Lawrence, Leah Lisblitz, Knight, Lottie, Lovro Plesse, Lucas Engels, Lucas Geerdes, Lucas Aritzo Hansen, Major Duncan, Matthew Taylor, Max Merb, Mezzo Emrys, Michael Marks, Michael Oskvark, Miles Edgelord, Mimes Are Creepy, Miyuna Arashi, Mr. Ease, Nick Extreme 99, Neru Soup, Nitro Skull, Nix Dolores, Node Pop, Noom, Omase, One Glad Morning, Austrin, Partu, Pizer, Picnic Blasted, Precise Spike 13, Pro FB2, Chrono, Raska, Riley Malo, Sam Pinney, Sapphic Ashley, Scrafted, Sean Deal, Sean Flynn, Second Sandoria, Seraphine, Shy, SSJ Magin Slayer, Standards Objective, Steve McMullen, Swinkles, Tate Rosencutter, The Carl Moxley, The Saucy Pickle, This Machine 237, Thought Auditor, Violet Prison, Why Am I Here, Yordle Hu, Yuri's Best, and Yukie. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing. And if you want to be part of the process, consider following me on Twitch as well. See you next time.